employees based on the length of their service, not on their title or position.
Wow.
And put money in my campaign and announced my run for governor.
Wow, that's a great story. And I see like there was that was a business that had been challenged in 2010 or prior to that, the recession of obviously that was plaguing Michigan, really 2008 through 2007 to 2010 and 11 really, but that was something that's brought back from a challenged place, and you're able to turn that around. And so that's a really great story.
Well, that I had originally bought a 3-person business, and that business I grew to about 450 employees. But in the recession, many of my customers who were small businesses went belly up. And actually, bank came and possessed that business, sold some of it, closed some down, and recover all of their money. And so I had to start all over again in 2010. And I did. I came to Ann Arbor, Michigan, restarted my business, and created 50 good-paying jobs in Ann Arbor.
I hear it. So, what do you think the idea is? How's Michigan going to bounce back in this current economy? Like, how do you see the? I mean, you're in a. I see that your background, as you said, you've got a PhD in chemistry, and despite the academia, you've also obviously have some business sense and are able to utilize those skills and find need for those services. Where else do you see development for those? What sector shall I say beyond? I mean, service included, if any, that you could think of, or other types of employment, and bringing jobs back to Michigan.
Well, Michigan used to be pretty much on the top in innovation and research and development. While we are losing some of the manufacturing base, my focus would be creating skill sets. We need to have more education, community college, 4-year college, as well as trade schools and vocational training. And I think what really hurts Michigan right now is people can get good paying jobs because they don't have the skill set necessary. And as we change technology, as new technology is welcomed, new skills are going to be needed. I met a guy named Todd in Kalamazoo, and he drives trucks all his life. And now he says, with the mobility coming in, and he may not have a job, and he has no other skills. So when people, lose their jobs, they need to have skills, acquired skills, so that they can succeed and, continue to keep their quality of life. And my focus is going to be investing in people. What I've seen last 7 years is a lot of big corporation welfare. Governor Snyder has given away hundreds of millions of dollars to big corporations, and they have no loyalty to Michigan. And my focus is going to be in small businesses, helping people, start businesses, more entrepreneurship. That's my background. I'm a serial entrepreneur. And I think I want to empower people in doing good for themselves, and that starts with education.
Yeah, that seems to be a major problem. We have to invest in our children more. I would agree with that. And you mentioned something that is not talked about that much. It's and I see. You mentioned community college, bringing community colleges back. The challenge, I think, for a lot of people right now is that colleges, beyond the community colleges, or they don't see it, it's still very expensive. And the jobs that are available to people outside of the graduation phase may not even provide for an opportunity to pay off a lot of those debts for many, many years, if at all. I heard the guy's a doctor, actually, and he said something, in today's world, unless the kid is going for like a professional skill trade where there's like a better chance of them having a real job, they're going to spend a couple $100,000 or $100,000. It's almost better to just, give it to them different segments and let them try to run a business. And if they fail a couple times, that experience would be equal to the amount you might spend in a college education. I just thought that was an interesting situation, especially from a father who's you're potentially going to give his advice to his kid like that, who wants to go into business or whatnot. What are your thoughts on that, and why is that the right or wrong position?
Well, our one is our education, like you said. Education is very expensive, and education is not a privilege. When I grew up in poverty, education was the ladder for my success. And that ladder is broken for too many Michiganders today. And we have to make education affordable. And it will help our economy, because the more educated people we have, the better resources, skilled resources businesses will have. And so by making it affordable, we need to make community college free for any family that has family income of $120,000 or less. And we want to make four-year college affordable. And if we do that, then, we take, education should be accessible regardless of a family's financial status.
That's true.
Just like health.
Right.
These are fundamental rights. These are not privileges. And the better we do, the government needs to make it accessible, and that's the only way for growth. That's the only way for us to take our state to the next level, is we have qualified, skilled people who then, that's how to attract big business to Michigan. And when they come here, they'll stay here.
Sheree, let me put you on the spot for 1 second.
Alan, I'm not done. Come in the middle, so maybe just wait.
On this education thing, do you know what the average cost is to keep a person in prison for a year here in Michigan?
Approximately $40,000.
That's correct.
And you know what the average cost of money that's given to a student in a K-12 is about $9,000.
Right, so it makes a lot of economic sense to do what you're doing, to suggest what you're doing about free college.
We need to do that, and we need to give skill set. Not everybody needs to or wants to go to a four-year college. Mm-hmm. And in that case, we need to give them a career and technical education, trades education. Mm-hmm. And, locking people up, especially for minor offenses, non-violent offenses, makes absolutely no sense. And we need to find alternate ways to provide skill sets so that people can return to, the returning citizens can live a productive life and become part of the society in a productive way.
I do understand that you are in favor of legalization and decriminalization, and find it offensive that people are getting locked up for that. And those are the easy, and you're this is the choir that you would be speaking to here. But let me expand that, because the education topic has the same challenges, I think, as the vision of a less, of a world that doesn't criminalize the plant of marijuana. And that is, where are those funds that are going to be needed to, provide the education, the free education that you're talking about? Where's that going to come from? Because it's got to come from something else. We're not going to create more money out of the tax base to provide it. It's got to be, it's fungible. It's got to come from another program. Something else would arguably have to be cut, I would think, unless you have another idea. And the same thing regarding like the cannabis, reduction. I just, I see so much business, quote unquote, activity that takes place in my world. I'm an attorney, go to court. Every docket, any given day in any court is 50% involving marijuana in some way. The crime lab tests 50% of their budget goes towards testing marijuana, while DNA rape kits stay on the shelves and nobody does anything about it. So what I'm saying is the only reason why they do that is because there's so much business. It's producing revenue. If we remove this from that big machine that is so, whatever, where's that money going to come from, or how are they going to be refunded? Just like where are we going to get the money for the education? I believe in both. I'm just curious because give me some thoughts on that.
Well, these are all good questions. And, I'm progressive, but at the same time, I've ran small businesses for 26 years, so I have to make payroll every 2 weeks. and I have to balance budget. I can't borrow money and live on borrowed money. So I have to really have balance my cost. And so not only when I think about free education or investing in infrastructure, I'm always asking myself the question, where is the money going to come from? And here, I want to bring a graduated tax system in Michigan, because there is no point, and I absolutely see no reason and no justification to raise taxes on the working poor, the lower middle class, the middle class. But if you look at corporations, they don't pay their fair share. There are so many loopholes the corporations have worked out with the politicians that they end up paying very little taxes. Same thing goes with the really ultra-rich people. And we need to have tax fairness, and redoing the tax fairness, making sure the corporations pay their fair share, could generate between $1 to $3 billion of additional revenues. In addition to that, if we can, we spend more than $2 billion on our prison system. And a lot of the money goes for nonviolent offenders. And if we can find an alternate way to assimilate them into the society back, we will save a lot of money. And we will put these young people, help them change their life and break this cycle of, revolving door type of thing. We'll adjust that. So we'll certainly legalizing marijuana would generate, I believe, somewhere between $120 and $150 million. And on top of that, I would do some 30-year municipal bonds. And I would use some of the additional taxes coming from the corporations to pay for the bonds. And I'll use all that and invest in people's education. I will invest that into giving skills to people. And I'll invest that in fixing our infrastructure. Several counties in northern Michigan don't have broadband high-speed internet. And it's very difficult to, for the students to study, for businesses to run a business without high-speed internet. We need to take care of the lead lines that are poisoning people with high lead content. And it's not just Flint. There are a lot of other places where there is lead in the pipes. Our sewer system is falling apart. Our roads are in terrible condition. We have bridges and waterways that need work. And if we don't invest in our state, then we can't take our state to the next level.
Do you see a world, and this is always the thing with, do you see a world in the 4 years and another, or how many years is it? 6 years? What's the term, 6?
Well, it's a four-year term.
So let's say do two terms as the max. Do you see like the police budget? It's hard to even address this, but if it's true and you've got X percentage of the amount of business that the police do or the amount of arrests they do is eliminated or reduced by 50%, 60% from whatever it may be, and does that mean that where are these police going to go? And my question is, do we find them other things to do? Are they going to be focused on other more serious crimes, or is and if that happens, if there's less business, is that something that's good for Michigan or bad for Michigan? If there's less money to employ police because there's not as much activity that's being paid out by citizens for fines and costs associated with marijuana, or How where does Michigan stand on that? This is always a existential debate. I think I know you're with me on that. This may be too much, but let me know what your thoughts if you have one.
Well, you know what? As the economy evolves, technology evolves. And as the economy evolves and technology evolves, what worked last year or last decade isn't necessarily going to work for the next decade. And we got to adjust. manufacturing has changed.